Today we're digging into a mystery from one of the most studied books in history. It's a story that kind of challenges the one thing we all think is a given. So let's just dive right in.
It's the one universal truth, right? It's the final chapter for every single person who's ever lived, from kings and pharaohs to you and me. No matter how you live your life, it always wraps up with an ending.
But what if, just what if, buried in those very same ancient texts, there are a couple of stories about people who just skipped that final chapter altogether? Well, that's the exact mystery we're looking into today.
Okay, so our investigation is going to start with our first case file. It's about a man whose story is as short as it is, well, baffling. We're calling him the man who vanished.
This right here, this is our primary evidence, straight out of the book of Genesis. Notice it doesn't say anything about sickness or old age. It's really just a statement of absence. 1 minute he was there, walking with God, and the next, he was just gone.
So who is this guy, Enoch? Well, the text gives us a few clues. He came from a pretty legendary lineage. He was the father of Methuselah, the guy who supposedly lived longer than anyone. And at 365 years old, which was actually kind of young for that time, his story, it just stops.
And that's the thing, there are no witnesses mentioned. No dramatic exit, no final words. It's just this quiet, almost clinical report of a man who was taken. And this subtlety is what makes this story so interesting and a huge contrast to our next case.
So let's open our second case file. Trust me, we are going from a quiet little mystery to a literal blaze of glory. And this brings us to the prophet Elijah. Now, unlike Enoch's subtle exit, Elijah's departure from the mortal world was a full-blown event. It was a spectacle of divine power that was anything but quiet.
The way it's described, it sounds like a blockbuster movie scene. First, Elijah parts the Jordan River with his cloak. Then, while he's just talking to his successor, Elisha, this chariot of fire with horses of fire just appears and separates them. And then boom! Elijah is taken up to heaven in a whirlwind.
And here is the absolute game changer. This wasn't some rumor or a private affair. It had an eyewitness. Elisha, his chosen successor, was standing right there and watched the whole thing go down. He actually saw the prophet ascend.
Okay, so we have two cases, two men, but two completely different stories. Let's put them side by side in our debrief and really break down what we've found.
Wow, the contrast is just so striking when you see it laid out like this. On one hand, you have Enoch's quiet vanishing act, no witnesses, told in just a single cryptic verse. And on the other, you have Elijah's public spectacle, with a named witness and a super detailed, dramatic story. Two men who somehow